Hi, I'm Jonathan, and welcome to First Last Everything, a podcast where I chat to guests about their relationship with technology through their first love, last obsessions, and the piece of tech that meant everything to them. Each item a guest brings to the show could be anything from a piece of software to a computer to a weird gadget to that first camera. Pretty much anything goes. This time I'm joined by Michael Flarup. Michael is a CEO, an author, and an entrepreneur, but most of all, Michael is a designer. You probably know him best as a creator of many incredibly cool, detailed icons out of his studio, Pixel Resort, where he also delivers illustrations, interface designs, and more. He also published the iOS app icon design book and its macOS counterpart. As well as all this, he's spoken at Adobe Max, runs a game studio called Northplay, and is a dad of two, all out of Koo in Denmark. So, First Last Everything with Michael Flarup. Let's go. Michael, you're a busy guy, so thank you for taking the time to chat with me today.
You almost got that right, Jonathan. It's Køge, and I do not like it. That's a very Danish city name, so that's totally okay.
I did my best.
Yeah, you did great. But yeah, no, the sun is shining. We're having a midday recording. It's awesome. I'm ready to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Excellent. So reading all that list, it sounds pretty full on. Does it feel that way to you?
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things, right? When you meet new people and they ask you what you do, and you're like, it's really hard for me to explain. Like it's many different things. I guess these days, most of my time goes into being the CEO of my game studio, Northplay, and all that work surrounding that whole project. I've been running that studio now for coming up on our ninth birthday. So that's most of my day-to-day job. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just like making things, and I think I've just said yes to a lot of fun things in my career, and it's just one thing leads to the next, and now I have this weird multifaceted pattern quilt of a career. And it's I don't know, I'm very happy with where I am in my life right now.
That's good. Nice. So before we get into the rest of our chat, I want to know about your relationship to technology. Would you consider it a good one?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think we're kind of part of a unique generation in many ways, millennials. I was born in 1984. And so quite uniquely, this generation, people born in the 80s and the 90s, kind of have seen the world both before, during, and after the invention of the internet. And I think that's really shaped my relationship with technology. And it's a hard thing to recreate today, right? Because I have kids and they're growing up in a world where the information age is everywhere around us. So I think that's definitely shaped my relationship with technology, seeing that whole change, growing up with big boxy computers and just seeing the whole evolution of everything. And then I've built a career on playing around on computers, I guess you could say, and that's brought me to many places in the world, physically and philosophically, So I'm pretty happy with my relationship with technology.
That's good. That's what we want to hear. Okay, let's dive straight into your first pick, which is the first piece of technology that inspired you. What have you got?
Yeah, so it's a difficult choice, right? Because there's a lot of cool things in the late 80s, early 90s. And my runner-up picks would have been stuff like, I was really like, the Game Boy changed my relationship, I think, with video games very early on. But my pick has to go to the Commodore Amiga 2000. That was the first computer that we had in our home. And I think even when we got it in Denmark, it was like a second-hand machine. It was an older machine that we got into our home, and you needed like this little floppy drive boot disk to actually boot the machine, right? That was the OS was on that drive. I just thought it was so fascinating, right? Here is an actual real computer, and it all just seemed like magic to me. And I think to a lot of people, to be honest, because it wasn't really a super user-friendly experience, right? If you wanted to get anything done on a machine like that, you kind of had to know your way around the system. And so I can't really remember exactly how old I was, but I can't have been much older than my son now, so maybe like around like 10 or 11, maybe even younger actually. And I'm not a native English speaker, so you'll first of all you have to learn a new language. I grew up in Denmark, right? I'm Danish, and then you had to learn your way around a keyboard and commands and dive in and try to like open up files, or if you couldn't get a game to work or whatever, you had to like troubleshoot it. There was no internet. There was no one else to help me, right? So I think that early sort of experience of looking at this magical box and screen and then trying to get as much out of it as possible. I think those years were kind of formative for like my whole career in my love of games, I guess.
Did you do any sort of creative endeavors on the Amiga?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to make games very early on, it's fun that I ended up where I am today. But even had like a fake, games company. I think we called it Sun Games. It was like with a kid two houses down from me, and we had like this fake game company that we were just trying to talk about all the video games we wanted to make. At that point, that was before I got my PC. But at that point, there weren't really any sort of easy to learn engines. There would be later. But so one of the things that I could make was like try to like create little text adventures on the Amiga, which was just by like an if-then kind of loop thing, like a file, like a bat file, and you opened it up and you'd write a little story, and I could make it sort of branch out. And if you could hit this button, you'll go to this area. If you hit this button, it was just purely text. So I did that for a while. And then there are some programs on the Amiga, early Amiga, that did, where you could draw, and drawing was like tiny, like, 32 by 32 pixel sprites, for example, or whatever. So I think that sort of instilled like an early interest in drawing things in a very constrained canvas. So I did all sorts of stuff on that machine, and of course that when I got my first PC, which was like a beast of a Pentium 2, like I think it was like a 120 megahertz, like fantastic machine, right, with a very early like Windows version. We started playing around with this game engine called Click and Play, which was actually made by Maxis. Maxis would later go on to make games like The Sims and things like that. But it was like an early tech sort of thing. I still find some images on it online. It was like an event-based game engine where you could do a little more. I wouldn't really call it programming, but more like conditional programming, I guess, with the UI on top. We made all sorts of games. I think the majority of games made in Sun Games Studio was made in Click and Play. But I did remember like playing these early games on the Amiga, for example, where I'd get like my stepdad had a connection at work where he could buy sort of these old like hand-me-downs floppy drives, and we'd get like a big box of them, and then it would have all sorts of games in them, and it was just up to us to sort of get them to work, and then we'll that in itself was a game. But then like just playing these sort of early games for me was just looking at it and being like, someone made this, right? And I also kind of want to do that. That seems like a really fun thing to do. And I think I was just like trying to like recreate and create moments for other people that I was having in those games. And so my audience was my two younger brothers, maybe my parents, if I could get them to look over some of the stuff that we made back then. But it was just sort of more the act of like creating sort of an experience for other people on the computer that I really fell in love with.
So it would be fair to say that the Amiga, it was the gaming focus that was really sparked the interest for you, really. Yeah.
For sure, yeah, but I also feel like it was, you had to kind of know your way around a computer to make it work. So I think it also sparked some like foundational like computer knowledge for me, like understanding how the thing actually worked. But with the emphasis on trying to get games to work, right? That was definitely my goal. Later on, I've worked as an IT support at a university, and I built my own computers. I restore old Game Boys, and so I definitely became a huge nerd after that, and wanted to take things apart and see how they worked. I think the Amiga was like the ground zero for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly agree in that sort of sense with the Performer. Was that with me, that was the jumping off point for being a nerd and really wanting to get to know computers and figure out how they work, and it came in through that creative angle of using the computer in that way. Do you know where this Amiga is now?
It's long gone. I've actually thought about having, like, I've many times found myself sort of scrolling eBay and feeling, could I buy an old Amiga 2000? I'm not sure that my wife would love me buying another old piece of like hardware to put somewhere. It's a pretty big machine, to be honest, I don't really know what I'd use it for. I'd try to get some of those old games working again. As you can see behind me, the listeners can't see that because it's an audio podcast, but you can see it, Jonathan. Is that I'm a bit of a collector.
Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah, I collect books and video games, consoles. And I guess it's just one of those things where, we grew up, we didn't really we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And now when I'm older, like, and have some level of success, like, I'm trying to like buy pieces of your childhood back. I think it's a very normal thing. A lot of people our generation does. And I do really love the nostalgia of like collecting some of these things, both PC games, but particularly consoles as well.
I recently got hold of my original iMac that I had, which is my own first personal machine, and it still kind of works. So I'm now trying to sort of fix that up again. But it's that nice. It's that idea of like trying to reclaim that the way you felt with that first computer, which is really attractive. So after your experience with the Amiga and this sort of creative spark that you kind of had through that, what was your next sort of steps? I know you've talked about before about sort of you used to draw a lot at school, and did you have the idea of like where you wanted to go? What was college the next step?
So I had no clue what I wanted to do, I think I was like, looking back, I was definitely I was a very creative kid. I was doing like lots of things, that we started playing, Warhammer and painting figurines, and we definitely drew a lot, most of us in school, and trying to come up with all these worlds and things like, and kid stuff, and no, like I just kind of went through the educational system like most people in the Nordic countries. Like went through. We have after 9th grade, we go to a thing called gymnasium. I guess it's kind of like high school, and then we have 3 years of that, and then I remember at the end of that, I was the internet was sort of taking off, and I was super interested in web design, and the web in general was like the early web. And I wanted to become a designer, and so I applied for a design school and got in, and then it wasn't exactly what I wanted. It was I think most of the design heritage of that school came from industrial and furniture design, which is very big in Denmark. There's a lot of that.
Yes.
And so, yes. So me, a visual graphic designer, this is before all of this stuff blew up and became a massive, like, powerful industry as it is today. I was kind of like just this sort of long-haired dude that wanted to work in Photoshop and make things for the internet, whatever that meant. And I definitely didn't fit in. My mom sort of forced me to finish that education. Be like, you started it, you're gonna finish it. It's like,
yes,
okay, yes. So I did that. Then I completely knew that I wanted nothing to do with design after that. It felt very it wasn't a very including environment. Like it was a lot of I don't know, just a lot of arrogance and like elitist sort of feelings surrounding nepotism and things like that. I was like, nah, this isn't
I've come
for
across
me.
that.
Yes, and I was like, oh, I guess that just isn't that's just not who I am and what I want to be doing. Then I fled back into university, and then studied science. I thought I wanted to study like geography at one point. I was in Thailand in 2004 during the Boxing Day tsunami, and that kind of gave my life a little bit of a different trajectory. So the things that I saw there and experienced, I was like, I want to do something about this. And so I went to university just to study, hard sciences and see if you can do work on early warning systems and things like that. But gradually at university, I kind of got pulled back into design because I really still loved making things on the computer, right? And I did like I ended up running the fraternity bar, I guess is the translation. Cause always been like a very social, outgoing person, and we needed flyers for parties, and I made those. Some people saw those flyers, and then they needed covers for books, and I made those. And I tried to make like an early social network before Facebook at university, which I cobbled together, which all of most of the university actually used before Mark Zuckerberg completely destroyed my tiny market.
Mark.
Yeah, but I don't know. So yeah, like I was like super into like I got pulled back into like design, and I thought, then I'll do like a computer science angle on it. So I studied to become a computer scientist and studied programming, and found out I was a horrible programmer. Like my Amiga days did not prepare me for the horrors of learning Java in university. And also, I guess I gravitated towards the visual side of things, and it just really wasn't that was not where the computer sciences field were going at the time. So I finished university, a bachelor's degree at university, and then me and a bunch of guys that I had written a project with, we all applied for our master's degree at another university here in Copenhagen. And I remember handing in the applications together, the five of us, and like high-fiving. Yeah, we did, and we read each other's applications. And at this point, I'd actually been doing some freelancing, so I kind of felt like pretty confident. I felt like I was actually out of the bunch. I was the one who had some experience in the field that we were applying for, and I was the only one who didn't get in.
Oh no!
Yeah. So, and when you're in that world, like that university world, like you can't really see like the perspectives. Like no one stops at a bachelor, right? You have to get your master's degree, or like bachelor is practically useless if that's your mindset, right? And so, yeah, I think that kind of gave me a gut punch for a while. Like, I didn't get in, and the rest of my friends kind of went on without me. But then I was like, hell, I'll just kind of freelance some more. I got hired by an agency, did that for a few years, like an actual design agency. I always encourage people to do that now, because it's kind of like being drafted for the army. Like, you get to work on so many weird things, right? You just get your basis sort of education in handling clients and dealing with all the craft around creative projects. And then after that, I sort of like, one day I quit that job and started freelancing full time, and started making my own companies. And I won't say the rest is history, but the rest is a very complicated and long, like 15-year story. But that was sort of the early days. That was like my journey from, I guess, if you wanted me to paint the picture, from the Amiga to exiting the educational system. And I don't want people listening to this saying, "Oh, I'm not going to go and take an education." I was very happy I met some amazing people.
Yeah.
I think education can be a great like framework for and maybe inexpensively sort of exploring where you want to go very early on, and try out a lot of different things, and meet a lot of interesting and exciting people. But I think all of these things have to be balanced with a very practical, hands-on approach, where you work on your own projects or get a lot of a lot of under your belt in terms of just trying to build things, whether you're a designer or a developer. And sometimes education sort of lulls you into the theoretical aspects of it rather than the actual craft of making things. And that, I think that can potentially waste a lot of time that could have been spent on making things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So take us forward to Pixel Resort in 2007, which you that's when you started it. You would be pretty young, 2007, right? So why did you decide to go it alone and create your own studio and work from that one-man setup?
Yeah. So when I looked back, even when I went to design school and took those 2 years of terrible education, I started freelancing and just sort of making things for people. I did like early websites that I also like hand coded in HTML and CSS and whatever. So I did like the full stack thing right back when that was a thing that you did. And after doing that for a few years and later on when I moved on to university and I started getting more and more people asking me to work on things, I was like, I probably have to like get a company to maybe do this, both legally, but also like for many reasons. You want to invoice people. And so I think it was good. I started early in sort of learning how to run a studio, just even as a one-person studio. I think one sort of common denominator for a lot of stuff that I've done in my career has been I've just learned on the job. I had no idea, but I knew that I wanted to get to a certain point, and I didn't know all the stuff that was in between where I was and where I wanted to end up. So I just kind of started along the path and just figured it out as I went along. I think that's a very sort of like general takeaway from my whole career. And it was the same with Pixel Resort. I remember sitting in like in university, a class actually, and buying the domain, and I was like, yeah, I'll make a little website and made a website for myself. And I think it was actually there that my freelance career really started to take off, because up until that point I was using like early web sites. Like, so I don't know if you remember a place called DeviantArt or DeviantArt, as I think I called it.
Yeah, it's still around today, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is still around today. Yeah. So I was like using like early creative social community places. I hung out on a lot of PHP BB boards for creative people and things like that. And later on joined like forums that would specialize in interface customizability and things like that.
Like skinning and things like that.
Skinning, Winamp skins, IRC skins, icon packs, wallpapers, that sort of stuff. Joined a very now steeped in fame and myth and legend, a forum called Mac Themes back in the day that I spent a long time on, sort of honing my craft. And it's really difficult to get better just in a vacuum, like where you're just... I mean, I have lots of wonderful friends and family and things like that, but honestly, they couldn't care less about my icons that I made or the wallpapers that I made. So you go in search of your tribe online. Yeah. But Pixel Resort specifically, when I made my first portfolio and had a website that I could actually point to that wasn't one of these sites, like the DeviantArts of the world or whatever, then that something happened. Like people started finding my work, and I started writing about my work and showcasing my work more online. So now suddenly it wasn't just people that I've met or had seen my work, through friends or colleagues or whatever, that started hiring me. So yeah, that was like that was how I started Pixel Resort, and it's fun because I launched that with the 6th major iteration, I think, of the site like last year. I've been doing it for like it's like 18 years now, and it's always just sort of been a staple of my career. Like I've always sort of come back to freelancing, no matter what I've also been doing. Worked on many other things and built studios and product development studios and worked on hardware and apps and games and all that stuff. But I've always sort of had that, like this sort of freelance career to fall back on, or to maybe give me some fresh perspectives, and I'd work on that in the weekends or at night or whatever. And I still occasionally do that. I really like that little one-man studio. It's a way for people to hire me as a designer, and I choose some projects that are pretty defined. Like app icon projects is, of course, one of my main staples, but also branding and logo work and things where I can go in a few weeks and actually make a change for a team, and then that's it, and then move on. So yeah, that's the role Pixel Resort has had.
It strikes me that all or most of your work is kind of intrinsically tied to technology, like app icons and games and UI and so forth. When you visit your website, most of the stuff on show is like app icon stuff. And was that always your vision for Pixel Resort, to be this sort of technology focused design?
I think I just kept like opening doors. Like people are always like, oh, was that like the vision or the goal? Like I don't know. Like I just did things because it was fun, right? I was just, oh, this is cool, and someone wants to pay me to do it. Awesome. Then I do that some more, and I put that into the world, and the world has this tendency to give you more of what you put into it. So I think it was sort of like a self-reinforcing thing, and it's great. Like I say that with pride, because it meant that I was always really connected to things that I thought was fun at the moment. I don't know if it was a vision, but it is definitely connected to technology, but maybe not from a plan, but more because I liked it, and that was sort of self-reinforcing in a way. But I guess like to that story, I think one thing that changed my career quite a lot early on was that. When the iPhone launched, for example, I think we were this group of people that had been hanging out on Mac Themes, the forum, and we were doing Mac customization, and Macs were slowly coming back in vogue at that time. Like I remember my first Mac, and you were definitely the minority. I had like the white clamshell Mac plastic thing. Loved that thing, and I was like customizing it and making icons for it. But at university, even back then, like there weren't a ton of Macs around. Then the iPod came, and Macs started to become a little more prevalent. And then when the iPhone came out, here was this group of people on Mac Themes that were really good at making icons. And this new platform, like touchscreen interfaces generally, was sort of, was the app revolution, but also kind of the icon revolution. Icons have always been there in interfaces, of course, but it really sort of cemented the fact that this new era or paradigm of interfaces needed a lot of icon work. And it was sort of an obscure art that not a lot of people exercised back in the day. And I was just primed for that. I had been spending so much time because I thought it was really fun to do. So my career went from, not working on like a lot of projects to suddenly having way more work than I could ever finish. And so, I think that's definitely helped me. And so in many ways, growing up with the smartphone revolution or whatever, sort of shaped my career as a visual designer, because I was so connected to the interfaces and the iconography that we made for those platforms.
Yeah, I see. What is it about app icon design specifically that is such a draw for you? Because it's such I don't want to say niche, because it's such a sort of prevalent part of like our daily lives. We live our lives off of our phones, and we're using app icons every day. But it is kind of niche in terms of designing. What is it about it that is a real draw to you?
That's a good question. I think it's the intersection between art and utility. So I think in interface design, like when you're designing, laying out a lot of websites or apps or things like that, there's a lot of constraints. There's a design system that you have to adhere to. There are many edge cases. It has a lot to do with content and efficiency and delivering stuff. And I've sort of probably always been a little more interested in the art side, like making those experiences for other people, like back on the Amiga. And you can certainly do that in interfaces, and I have explored that part of my career also. But there's just something about app icons that distills everything about design into this one little constrained canvas. And I think that's it's really awesome. I've been teaching app icon design for many years and doing workshops for people around the world. And one of the main sort of key takeaways that I give people is that app icon design is kind of like this microcosm of design. You really have to learn things like legibility and scalability and uniqueness and of concept and hierarchy. And there's a lot of things that goes into this tiny little 1024 by 1024 pixel canvas. And all of those things are directly applicable to almost all other areas of design. So it's a great playground to learn the ropes of design in a canvas that's super constrained. You only have those pixels to deliver your message, to paint the picture, to tell the story. And I've gravitated towards that for years. And I love that. It's such an expressive way of doing design. I think it is more artful. It can be, and if you have an app counterpart, this is the most important visual aspect of your entire product. Like it is what people think of when they think of your product. It's what they touch every day. They interact with your product. It's such a lost opportunity if you don't put some care and effort into it. And we had a few years there where it was a little rough, where people just put a colored glyph on a white background and called it a day. And while that's sometimes called for, I think one of the great things about design is there is no one solution that fits all. I've always been a big advocate of that. But generally, I want to say that logos and app icons are kind of they're similar in some aspects, but they're also very different. It's the toolings are different, the mindset is different, where they live are different, and they can definitely be related to some degree, but not always. And I think the app icon design has been more impactful and consequential for visual design than most people actually care to admit. It's to the point where a lot of branding design and logo design actually mimics app icons shapes. You'd see more and more app icons that have or logos that have sort of become more square in their glyphs than they would have otherwise been previously. And I think all of that is the influence of app icons. I think there's a certain sort of a certain visual style that comes with app iconography that has bled through to other parts of design in general, and it's often quite overlooked, but it's definitely there, the influence. So I think it's. I mean, I don't want to play it down. I think app icons have been hugely important in visual design in the past, like 10, 15 years. And you asked me why I gravitated towards it. It's because there's been so much work to do there, and it's been this wonderful cocktail of art and utility, and really that's been great.
I think it's time for pick 2, which is the last item of technology that you've been really getting into. What's that?
Yeah, so I couldn't buy this piece of technology in my country. I had to go to a foreign country, and I was in Japan last year, and went to the Apple Store in Kyoto and bought myself an Apple Vision Pro. And it's a very expensive piece of equipment that is definitely not for most people. But I've always been really AR, VR curious. I've owned a lot of different headsets over the years. I had the first development kits of the Oculus, and I've had a PSVR 1 and 2, and we have a Quest here at home, and we've made games for these some of these platforms, and so of course I was very curious to check out like Apple's take on the whole thing, and it's a very like controversial thing. I don't think even I didn't even like tweet that I bought it or whatever, because I was like I can't handle that people are so hot on the topic. Like they're so hard on this little piece of technology, and people have been rooting for it to fail. I really like it, and that's my pick number 2. Like definitely that's the technology I've been getting into. It has its limitations, and it's very much a first-gen product, but it's really cool. And specifically, what I think is awesome about it, it's a screen for your face. I think that's probably how it should be marketed. It's a very expensive screen for your face that you can bring around. It's a computing platform, but there's almost no apps on it. and some of the stuff is a little wonky still, and there's a lot of features missing, and all that stuff that makes a Gen 1 product. And the fact that it costs like the amount, like that you could buy a small used car for that amount of money, is probably going to keep it out of their hands for most people. To me, like one of the things that I use it for is I use another sort of technology that's coming of age right now is game streaming. So I have a GeForce Now account. Do you know what that is?
Yes, yeah, I've just started a trial of that actually. I'm going to check that out for a bit. Been meaning to do it for a while, and I've got a bit of time on my hands at the moment, so I'm going to try that out. But yeah, it's very cool. I have not tried it on the Vision Pro, but I imagine that's pretty cool. I imagine you can blow it up to sort of cinema screen size.
Yeah. I was playing Kingdom Come 2 on it, and basically, so for people that don't know, GeForce Now is sort of you're playing. It's someone else's gaming rig. You're playing on a computer that's in Germany or whatever, and they'll basically make like a virtual machine for you and boot up. You know, you're logged in with your Steam account or whatever, so you can play the games that you own. It's not necessarily a streaming platform for games. Like you don't buy access to games. You need to still own the games. But you buy access to a computer that has a fairly modern GPU, and then you stream basically, everything that computer sees, you stream onto your whatever platform that you're on. And it could be a television, it could be a very low spec laptop. Like it doesn't matter, right? You'd be playing like on a beefy gaming GPU somewhere else. And what's interesting about the combination of that technology, game streaming, and the Vision Pro is that you sort of get the mobility that the Vision Pro offers and the absolute like best-in-class screen. There's nothing. I've tried a lot of headsets. Nothing compares to the Apple Vision Pro screen. So you get that, and it has Bluetooth connectivity. It's an OS in by itself. So you basically just connect up with like a PS5 controller, and then you can play like massive, AAA games in your couch. You can do that with a PlayStation 2, sure, but I can also take it on the go. Like I have a trip coming up to Chicago. It's a long flight, and I'll be in some sort of hotel room that probably has a TV that's 20 years old. Like so suddenly, like this sort of technology starts to make sense. Like if I want to bring that entertainment with me. So yeah, I really like it. Every time I use it, it kind of feels like a taste of the future. It's big and clunky and heavy, and you can't use it for more than, I think, 2 hours is my maximum on the Apple Vision Pro. And I don't use it that often, like maybe a couple of times a week, if even that, or maybe once a week. But it's just every time I take it off, I'm like, damn, that's cool. Like it just feels like so cool. And it has all these barriers to entry, sure, and there's a million things wrong with it in its current iteration, but it feels like something that will sort of happen in the future. This combination of these different technologies, and I think that's exciting. That's why you're paying like this premium to try to preview the technology that's gonna probably be everywhere in 5 or 10 years, and with all its caveats and the issues that it has, and that's I think the mobility factor of it, like a very lightweight headset that is a screen. We have screens everywhere in our homes, most of us, right? So I have 2 screens for my. I have a very expensive XDR because I'm a graphic designer, and I that's been one of the best purchases I've ever made, even with the silly expensive aluminum stand. I also have a studio display. I think we have 3 or 4 televisions in our house. I don't think it's unlikely that people have more than one television. That happens. We have all these screens everywhere, and I could see a future where we don't have a lot of screens, where we just have something that we put on our faces. Definitely much lighter than what we're seeing now, and maybe less intrusive. And we just have like these shared experiences, like just cast something up on the wall or in front of the couch or whatever. Imagine what it would do to feng shui. Like the interior design doesn't have to be made around the TV altar. I think we are looking at some of that stuff, and it's the same with like gaming peripherals and equipment. Like right now, you have to go and buy a console. You have to have a television that's of a certain kind, like a faster hertz refresh rate or whatever, to really enjoy your PS5 Pro or whatnot. And I mean, maybe we'll look back at it the way that we look back at the Amiga and be like, oh yeah, we had to have, like, it was super clunky and you had to have all these things. I think that's maybe where we're heading.
But the Vision Pro, I think, segues nicely into your game studio, Northplay. So tell us about how you got started there. Where did that come from?
Sure. So as we already established, I have always loved making games, and I think I had a stint where we worked at I started a product development studio back when apps were very, very new. It was called RoboCat. We made lots of apps together, and we grew that studio to like 15 people and worked on so many. That's a whole separate podcast, but so many different apps and hardware and things like that. That's another book. But after that sort of came to a close, and it was sort of left for me to start something new, I was like, it has to be a game studio, because I think for the longest time, even when we were running RoboCat, I was always trying to gamify all the apps that we made, or we even made a few games. And so I think, like, through both visual and audio design and all those things, I've always sort of gravitated towards telling those experiences and making video games. So yeah, it was very clear to me that I was starting a game studio, and then I started Northplay. And at the beginning, I was like, we didn't have a lot of money. I just put my money in it, and I think we're 2 or 3 employees and some collaborators that sort of joined us on this sort of quest to make the first game in Northplay. And we had a little bit of client work on the side to sort of try to fund it. It's both very easy and very hard to start and run a studio, because in many ways the tooling has gotten better. We're using Unity. It's great. You can really get off the ground quite quickly. But video games also just take a really long time for them to become fully formed products that actually go into the market and make money.
And you don't know whether they're going to be successful as well. Like that's the gamble that you do.
Yeah. But also, I think in many ways, maybe tying threads back to my design career, is that I kind of got tired of app interface design. Like, I want to do cool UI design, right? I think I want to make these sorts of experiences for people, and there was I think a time where there was a little bit of a draft. Like, it was like a desert walk in terms of exciting UI opportunities. It's gotten better out there, but I think with the popularization of some of the newer design tools that this generation of designers grew up with, it also sort of became very samey, like the visual design of many apps. There are many reasons for that. Again, probably another podcast. But but the thing is, I wanted to do like game design. I wanted to do exciting UI design and all that stuff. The games industry has in spades. So we're working on the first game. And it was a mobile game, because that was kind of what we knew. Like, we came from that world, and
this is Conduct This, right?
This is Conduct This, yes. And it was sort of a train action puzzle game. It still is. It's actually grown a lot. It's a huge game for us now, and
I have it on my phone. Yeah,
yay. We got really lucky with that first game. It turned out, I can say that with some humility. Like, I've made games after this that were not as good as Conduct This. So it's a very good game. And it's what happened was that we were running out of money, and we'd been working on it for like 8 months, I think. And I looked at the bank account. I was like, okay, we gotta ship it now, otherwise we're gonna be bankrupt. And so I think we had like 20 levels. And it was in, I think, December of 2016, and we launched it. And we did all the things that we do, when you from our app days. Like, we had a newsletter, we wrote press releases, we wrote to different websites, but talk about our train game. We're super worried because at the time it was, I don't even remember, but that was when Super Mario was coming out. It was like I remember that. Yeah, the runner. It was like Super Mario's coming, and we could just sort of see the slow moving train wreck, pun intended, that it would be that we had like, our little train game's gonna come out. No one's gonna write about us because Mario's there, and no one really did write about us. So we were kind of right on that. We got around, I think, 20,000 downloads, which is, I guess, okay, but not enough to run a studio on. And then right before Christmas, before the App Store lockdown happened, some person at Apple just sort of conduct this. And what happened then was it was like an origin story for Northplay. It was Super Mario bombed. It was not a very good game, the first one. And people were super angry at it. And right there next to it was our little train game featured. And it happened to be a good game. And so we got like 1 million downloads in those 2 weeks. And that completely that changed it for us, because that meant that we could, first of all, develop it further. The studio could live on. We could go on to make some other games that were not as popular. Try get the experiences that we needed to become a more fully formed game studio. So that was Conductus. That's how we started Northplay. And Northplay has been sort of 9 years of working on many different games. I think we've been a very hungry man at the creative buffet table. Like, we've worked on, I think, 6 or 7 big mobile games. We've worked on 4 Nintendo Switch titles, a PC title, and then we've done some work for hire for various institutions here in Denmark. We have a national media, the DR. It's kind of like the BBC, and they do children's content that I grew up with, of course. And we are making games for them, which is super cool when you have kids that age. And
that is cool. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, we worked with the National Museum of in Denmark to make game components to some of their exhibits. And so I think we've just chosen to work on a lot of cultural products next to our commercial games, and that has sort of shaped Northplay.
Yeah, it is a really great origin story. That I was glad you got to tell that. That uncertainty of a game, whether it's going to hit, and then it fails at first, or not so much fail, but isn't the success that you needed, and then that one thing happened that just catapulted it into success. It's really great. I really love that story. I'm glad you told it. So your involvement with games. So you're the CEO of Northplay. But you are involved with lots of UI design and lots of other sort of types of work, not traditionally the sort of CEO type work, which I love that, but it is kind of unusual. I kind of have this vision of you having too many ideas that you can't just sort of stand back and not get involved. Is that kind of how it works? Do you have to sort of restrain yourself sometimes, or is that just how you've set up the company to just make sure that you're as involved as you can be?
I think for the first couple of years, that was definitely the case. Now we've sort of we've transitioned a little bit, because we're working on a very ambitious project right now, and have been for the past 2 years. And now we have a publisher, which is very different. I've always sort of just done it all myself. And so that's definitely matured my role, I think, as a CEO. Like, I've had to professionalize that part of my of my career, and I can't just be like the puppy dog running after the next creative shiny thing. We have to develop better processes at our company, and we have 15 people now. I have 15 people employed at Northplay. So I think it used to be that way. I'm still very involved, as you say. Like, I made a game studio because I wanted to make video games, not because I want to sit on on meetings and So I do a lot of stuff. Of course, I'm a damn good visual designer, and of course it'd be weird if I didn't do the UI for our game. And I think I'm also slowly maturing into a pretty decent game designer. It's taken many games to get here. I have a slightly different approach than some of the other very talented game designers that we have on our team. And so I think we're kind of a good mix. In many ways, I look at Northplay and the people that are surrounding me, and it feels like we've sort of been in boot camp for 9 years, like learning how to make games together and making failures and going on all these adventures. And now we're working on this really huge project that we wouldn't have been able to handle just a few years back. So I think my role has changed. But yeah, no, I'm still very much involved. I'm in Unity almost at least on a weekly basis. I get to do like game design and documentation, and I think it's cool when you're a 15 people still small game studio.
Yeah,
and I think it's still doable at this stage. If you're 50 people, then maybe not. But by design, we are not 50 people because I really want to be involved for as long as possible.
Yeah, I saw that you recently were still doing some work on the UI design for this new game, which is called Dinolords.
Yeah, Dinolords.
Dinolords, which is a great name. And you said recently that when you were younger, you probably just wanted to work on games. You were interested in games and dinosaurs, and this is sort of the coalescence of those two things. So give us a quick brief on Dinolords, what it's about, and when do you think we'll be able to see it?
Thank you, Jonathan, for letting me pitch my game on your podcast.
Yes, do it. Elevator pitch.
Yes. So we are making a new genre, a hybrid genre between a real-time strategy and an action role-playing game. You play as the British lord. It's just as you remembered in your history books. It's a very historically accurate game where you are getting attacked by the Viking invaders, the Danes. And as you remember from your history books, the Danes have access to dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, my ancestors told me about this.
Yeah. Yes. It's a shocking new age in medieval warfare. And first of all, it's a very sort of nostalgic, I think, romantic packaging of a game. Like it's a game for PC, a strategy game that we grew up with, kind of like Age of Empires or Stronghold or some of those other games. But the innovation is that you are playing as the main character, the lord or the lady, and you sort of run around and you build up your town, and there's resources that you have to gather or automate, and you construct your fortifications, and then you go and fight savage Vikings on dinosaurs. Of course, you get access to dinosaurs yourself. You get to ride around dinosaurs, and
good.
It's a strategy game, and these types of games, like particularly real-time strategy games, are not usually the first type of game you do as a game developer because they're quite, even today, still inherently quite complex to make, and so yeah, it's the most ambitious project I've ever worked on. It's also the most fun. It's a big undertaking. As I said, we have a publisher now. They're very, very talented. They're called Ghost Ship Games or Ghost Ship Publishing. They make another popular game called Deep Rock Galactic here in Denmark, which is sort of a co-op dwarf shooter. It's really awesome. But they also have a lot of experience from launching games on Steam and working with early access, which is this thing on Steam for the non-gamers out there, where you basically release a slightly unfinished game to finish it together with the audience. So yeah, that's what we're working on with Dinolords right now. We're 2 years into the project. We've sort of embraced what I like to call like open development, which means we do like behind the scenes videos of us working on the game. We do monthly, lists of what we're working on and that sort of stuff. We try to bring people on for the journey of making the game. And it's been amazing. Like we've been super floored by the response so far. There's obviously no game that people can try yet. We are hoping to have that ready for early next year. But the thing is, like, there's just something about knights and dinosaurs and Vikings, I think that speaks to people's fantasy.
Yes.
I think
it's a great pitch. Here. I love it.
Story-wise, it's a good pitch. And we were so fortunate to go on. We were in Rolling Stone magazine with the article, like an article about the game.
Oh, really? Wow.
Like we've just been floored by the press that we've gotten on the game already. And the one metric that you have when you are doing a game like Dinolords is that it's Steam wish lists, basically. That's that's the name of the game. You don't have a product out yet, so the only way that you can really sort of make a business case on it is how many people go in on Steam, write Dinolords, and hit wish list. And we've been off to a great start. We have around 83,000 wish lists right now. I just checked this morning.
Wow.
Which is a lot. I think we're in top 300 games, wishlisted games on Steam right now, and hopefully that'll increase even more as we get closer to a release next year. But so please, if that sounds interesting, go wishlist it. Yeah, if you're listening, go. And if you play video games, you can go to Dinolords.com if you want to hear more or see more of the project. I think we have a really cool trailer for the game, but also just on Steam, you can just search for Dinolords and just go wishlist it. It means a lot.
Will this be available on the Mac as well?
That's the plan right now. Yeah, we haven't made any decisions that doesn't make it available on the Mac. So the plan is to release on both Windows and Mac, and yeah, we'll see after that. Hopefully, we'll be successful and we can run a studio on it and further develop the game and the genre. It's a new thing. Which is what makes it so difficult, because it's not a strategy game where you in like Age of Empires you click around a mini map and you're sort of this omnipotent god like. And it's also not only a Diablo-esque game where you are just one character. Like, it's the mashup of those two things. And we have a new name for the genre that we're trying out with press, which we're calling it Hack and Strat, which I think
Hack and Strat.
Yeah, Hack and Strat.
Nice.
Yeah. Kind of like
good.
Hack and Slash, but Hack and Strat, because it's strategy.
Love it.
We're trying that. Yeah, so maybe if we play our cards right, in a few years, that's going to be completely accepted vernacular. That's going to be attacked on Steam. And we'll be the first in a new genre. That's what I'm hoping.
We'll be back in a minute to hear the everything pick, but this is the part of the show we take a break and take a look into the past to talk about a piece of technology that you may not have heard of. Weird, ahead of its time, an abject failure or success. Whatever it was certainly something. The year is 1973, and a fresh graduate by the name of Steve Sasson joins Eastman Kodak Company, the company we now know as Kodak, as an engineer. He's put to work on something called a charging coupled device, a type of integrated circuit that had been recently invented. He discovered that through a new process called digitalization, he could convert the electrical signal created by the CCD from a two-dimensional light pattern into numbers before transferring that onto a digital magnetic tape via RAM. 2 years later, he created something that would change photography and the world forever, the digital camera. It was far from elegant at first. Lots of the parts were cobbled together, and the body of the camera sat above a bunch of circuit boards and batteries. It was not very portable, and took half a minute to load the 100 by 100 pixel image from the device to a connected television set. He had a long road ahead of him, and Kodak weren't exactly enthusiastic about the project. He'd originally created the camera as a, quote, photographic system to demonstrate the idea of an all-electronic camera that didn't use film and didn't use paper, and no consumables at all in the capturing and display of still photographic images. At the time, Kodak had a monopoly on all parts of the photographic process, from the camera, the film, and development process, so the idea of getting rid of that cash cow was just not part of their plan. After showing it at various conference halls, Kodak patented the technology, then forbid Sasson from talking about it. He kept working on the device, iterating on it constantly, citing Moore's law and saying there would be a good enough version to ship in around 15 to 20 years. In the meantime, Kodak licensed the patent out to numerous other companies, making them millions, while also clinging to the profits they got from analog photography. Kodak eventually started releasing digital cameras for consumers, but their patent expired in 2007 and Kodak filed for bankruptcy in 2012. Steve Sasson, the unsung hero of digital photography, was awarded the National Medal of Technology and Innovation by President Obama in 2009. The original digital camera, in all its bright blue glory, is now on display at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. Check out the notes for more links, including a lecture by Steve Sasson himself. Let's get into your last piece of tech that has meant everything to you. And I love this one, so let's hear it.
Yeah. I mean, if I have to only choose one thing, and because there's been a lot of tech that we've already covered now that could maybe go up on that pedestal, but I was thinking about this when you wrote me. I was like, one thing, I really have to choose one. It's Photoshop. It has to be Photoshop. As a piece of software that's driven my whole career, I still use it on a daily basis. It's been there with me through everything. And it's just how I express a lot of the art that I make. I think it's changed a lot over the years too. But as a singular piece of software, it's sort of been like the staple of my career. And I don't really know where I'd been if I didn't have that piece of software.
Yeah, I kind of flip flop between my first iMac and Photoshop as my everything pick. But Photoshop was that app that I would sit in front of for hours when I was younger on the Performer years ago, just playing around with it, seeing what I could do, getting inspired, playing with effects and layers, and I guess that was maybe the same for you, maybe when you first started with Photoshop.
For sure. Yeah. No, it was like, wow, you can do all these things. What I loved about and still love about Photoshop is that it's such a legacy application in many ways. You can do things in a million different ways, right? It is not as streamlined as some of the more modern applications.
Yeah, for the better or worse, I think.
For the better or worse. But what I liked about it was that in many ways, because there were so few rules and constraints, you can make anything. I kind of feel similar to. Do you remember back in the day when Flash was like a big thing for websites?
Yes, I built a website entirely Flash based. Yeah,
and every website you visited was like this experience or crazy thing or like. And I think there's some of that energy in Photoshop as well, like where you can make some weird stuff. And I think the world needs a little more weird. It needs to break the mold a little bit so that we, in interface design specifically, don't end up doing like colored squares on a background, which is often what we resort to. So yeah, to me, I wanted to choose something that was not only pivotal in sort of my career, but also something that still impacted me to this day. And I set up late last night, did interface design for Dinolords, and it's. I don't think I have something that I've used for more than 20 years, 25 years in my career, in my life. Something that's had that staying power, and I've been lucky to have a really good relationship with Adobe. You mentioned in your intro, I've spoken at Adobe Max. I've spoken at Adobe Max for 9 years. I've been to so many like Adobe related events. I've been on the sort of they had sort of an internal board of like helping shape the future of Photoshop, and I've met the Photoshop team. I've been to their offices. So whatever controversy that usually surrounds Adobe, like I have a very warm relationship with the people that make this application. I think it's still a great design tool in 2025. I teach Photoshop. I still do workshops on it. I have a YouTube channel where I break down how I do my design work, and yeah. So it is a very clear winner for me. I think if I had to choose just one piece of technology.
Yeah, I think you because you still do your primary tool for logo design is Photoshop, right? And yeah. I find that interesting when I think a lot of people these days tend to sway towards Figma or Sketch or even Illustrator, but you've stuck with Photoshop. I'm interested why Figma and the like haven't swayed you to sort of move over to them. I'm sure you do use them to a certain extent, but
I've made tools for all of them, so I know them very well. And I have I also feel like I have a pretty good relationship with the Sketch team. They've invited me to Porto, and I've given a talk there, and I've used Sketch to some degree. I think those two tools, by the way, Figma and Sketch, are very different. They're sort of, they come from different people and they try to serve different needs. Figma was really born out of this idea that we need to collaborate on the web, and it's very much an engine for a modern interface design, and the sort of the design systems that we have today, which can be very convoluted and lots of rules and things, and you want to make sure that if you're multiple people working on one big design system and many screens or across many platforms, you use something like that. Sketch is a native macOS first. It's wonderful in that aspect. It's a great interface tool. It's also good for I know some people that are very talented at doing the type of work that I like doing too, like icon design and gradients and tactility and real like textures and stuff like that. Sketch can also totally do that. For me, I think why I gravitated towards Photoshop and never really broke completely out of it was simply, first of all, the good old sunk cost fallacy. I've just spent so long on it, so I can move really fast in Photoshop.
The same with me.
Sometimes, sometimes that's sort of scoffed upon. People are like, no, it's fine. Like whatever gets. I think generally my take on creativity is that whatever gets you to the finish line, right? It can be whatever tool that you want to use. I'm very tool agnostic when it comes to that, and I try not to preach that people should use a certain tool. I'm just trying to explain why I use Photoshop. What I like about it, I think a lot of my work is pixel based. So app icon design is generally not a vector sort of exercise. It's great that you have non-destructible vectors, and I have that in most of my work. But really, app icons are exported in specific sizes. Ideally, it's just a range of PNG files. That has to look good at certain sizes. And I don't think there's any other design application in the world that is as good as manipulating pixel level raster graphics as Photoshop. That engine still has like 35 years plus of manipulating these pixels, right? So to me, the tooling around that is just much better. I also use Illustrator for base shapes and things like that. Of course, when you're doing logo design, you have to also do vectors. So I'll usually use a combination of it. But when I do final touch-ups on things like app icons and stuff like that, it's always Photoshop, because it really offers me that pixel level control that whole medium actually requires.
Yeah, no, Photoshop is still the king at that. Really, the pixel level stuff is just, there's no one really sort of managed to touch them over the years, really.
I don't think so. But whatever I want to end on it, like whatever gets the job done. Like I again, very agnostic. If you're good at Figma, if you use MS Paint, like it does not matter. That's not really the point. Is that you learn a tool and you get good at it, and you learn the many weird ways in which you can obtain the results that you want. I just think we have to be super aware that the tools do really shape our work. The invisible constraints of what we can actually do in a tool will have an impact on the visual expression at the end. So if you do choose some of these more streamlined systems, really try to see if you can break the mold, break out of what they want you to make. And I think that this latest generation of design tools are more restrictive because it's made for something else. So that's why I still gravitate towards Photoshop. But you could technically use anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. So here's the big AI question. Do you think we've seen a lot more in Adobe products? There's AIs coming in a lot more. They're kind of pushing that quite a lot more these days. Do you think AI is going to replace a lot of the work that Photoshop does currently? So things like retouching, healing, those sorts of things. Do you think that we're going to see AI eventually take the load of that more going forward?
Yeah, I think so.
How do you feel about that?
I'm very conflicted about it. Actually, this is sort of like I've been thinking a lot about this, and of course I've seen over the years, sat there in the opening keynote of Adobe Max and seen gradually how the products that they're making is less and less geared towards someone like me, and more geared towards like the arguably far larger group of people that just need to get some sort of creative work done as part of their other job. And I don't know, like I think there needs to be some nuance in that conversation. I do not like the way that the unethical ways in which some of these large models are trained on people's artwork. On my artwork, it's very clear. I can prompt and get something that looks like it was designed by me or designed by some of my friends or illustrators, and that doesn't feel great. On the other hand, I like to see AI as sort of like not taking over human creativity, but more like maximizing the potential that people have. So I think it's more of a nuance of figuring out where AI can help and aspects that we maybe shouldn't have it do. And that being said, honestly, there is just there's a lot of AI slop out there that is just not very good. when we talk about visual generation of stuff. And I think most of us designers kind of see it and be like, I've played around with these tools. Like I've always been, technologically curious. So of course I've had a Midjourney account. I've played around with like what can it do right now, and I've played around with Adobe's tools too. And it's just it's not for me. It doesn't help my work at all. Like, because I would never. I think the output quality of it is just barely passable. There's just too much weirdness going on in image generation as it is right now, and people keep saying, "Oh, it'll get better," and maybe it will, but it doesn't really solve. AI doesn't solve that part of my work for sure. It can help with ideation, I guess. But I would never use it in a finished product, like as a one-to-one, just sort of, oh, AI made this, here you go. But maybe there is a huge group of people where, that type of creative work was out of reach beforehand, and now they can do that. And I don't know how to feel about that. I don't think it doesn't encroach on my creativity, to be honest. Aside from the fact that however they train these models are unethical and stuff like that. If we leave that by the side right now and say, okay, that train has already left the station, we're just looking at the status quo. Like, I think this might enable a lot of people to do some pretty like stuff that might have taken humans a long time and were not very creative in the first hand. You mentioned, Photoshop, like touching up images or cleaning up stuff, or a lot of that stuff is pretty manual labor and not a lot of artistry is involved. I think I can say that without having a bunch of angry people up my neck. So I think AI could maybe help with those things, all the manual, menial type of stuff that is part of a creative project, freeing up people to then maximize their creative potential and working on things, human things that would make the final product better. So that's kind of, I guess that's my roundabout way of answering your question about AI.
I guess it kind of goes back to what you were saying a few minutes ago about using the tools that get you the creativity that you need. Some people might use one tool, some people might use another tool, and if one of them's AI, then maybe that's okay. I certainly have a view on it in a certain way. I think I probably have a similar view to you, but then also it doesn't really affect my creativity. So it's a very nuanced conversation. I think it's definitely not an easy answer.
No, it isn't. And the problem is that it usually devolves to like a level of like AI good, AI bad kind of thing. Yeah. And I don't think that's a very helpful conversation right now. I think there are some parts of this that, I don't know. I think there's a lot of fear around AI taking over human creativity, right? And while some of that fear is like justified, I see like AI as like a tool to like maximize creativity rather than replace it. That's my very optimistic way of looking at the future.
Yeah. So lastly, I just want to quickly touch on your books, the iOS app icon book and the macOS app icon book. Why did you decide to do these? It strikes me a little bit as almost like a design historian. You were taking on that role because when apps disappear, when they remove from the app store and they remove from people's phones, you kind of lose that. You lose that work that's been done. Was that kind of your motivation to do some of this?
Yeah, it started out as sort of like, why haven't someone done this, right? You have all these wonderful logo design books. I have a few of them up on my shelves too, and I think it's great to put logos up on that sort of artistic pedestal as something that could belong in a book or in a gallery. And I kind of wanted that same treatment for app icons. I was like, here's this important cultural, visual history, design history. And why haven't we really celebrated that? Why? And I love books. I love physical things. So I think it's sort of a mixture of naivete and just let's do it kind of spirit. I just tweeted out like, I'm making a book. I bought the domain. I was like, I'll make an icon book. And I think if I had known how much work that would have been, I might not have done it, but it was an amazing project. It took me 4 years to make the first book.
Wow.
And And I think, of course, it would have been much easier just to put my own work in a book, but I didn't want to make a book with my work. I wanted to make a book with lots of awesome work. And so there was a lot of work involved in getting, the right people to sign legal license agreements to print their work. And then it kind of dawned on us as we were doing this work. A lot of good people collaborated on the book. It wasn't just me. When we were working on it, what we found out was exactly the point that you were just making, that a lot of this stuff, this work, is disappearing. So while I didn't set out to make sort of this museum of app icons, the archaeology equivalent of graphic design, I was just stunned by the ephemeral nature of the type of work that we do. And of course, we all sort of intrinsically know this. Like we know it goes on screens, and when websites go down or apps are taken or bought or whatever, taken down or bought or gets removed from the app store, that work kind of disappears that we do. But it became really apparent as we were working on the book, because a lot of the work that we wanted to feature just didn't exist anymore. And then we had to, like, as a group of archaeologists, sort of unearth some of these old files and get them into a printable shape and get the right people to sign for them through acquisitions and whatnot. So it was really tricky to put the first book together. But I was super proud of it. We also ended up having interviews with designers that works on app icons from around the world, about their process and how they think about this art form. And in general, I think that book, the iOS app icon book, sort of, it did exactly what I wanted to do with it, which was put it on a pedestal and saying, look, this is something that happened in the past, decade plus, 15 years. And it's worthy of celebration. It's this new art form that didn't really exist before. And some of it is going away. And here we have sort of this wonderful little visual compendium of all the stuff that went into it.
Yeah, it was great. Gotta say thank you for doing all that. It's I think there's certainly, like you say, the ephemeral nature of these things can, especially nowadays with digital, it just can go away. So it's really great to see what you did on those. I look forward to, in 10 years' time, you doing another round of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was stupid enough to do the sequel, right? The macOS app icon book. But at that point, I had also learned a lot about self-publishing, and so that book only took like a year and a half. But yeah, so I have those two books, and now it's mostly automated. Like, we still sell them. If people are listening to this, we have some stock left. Not a lot, but some on flarup.shop. Yeah, I don't know. I have no current plans to make any more right now, because it was a lot of work. But I'm really happy that I did it. I think it... and I was also floored by the response generally, because when you work on something for that long, you go a little crazy, right? You're like, do people, I mean, would anyone really care about this, right? And you fall in love with the subject matter all over again, and you're like, oh, this is such an important book. But then you don't really know until it comes out and people are actually, it's in people's hands, how they're going to feel about the work and the collection of stuff there. So that was pretty good.
Just like your games as well, really.
Yeah, you have to have, there's a little bit of a leap of faith that you make with creative projects like that. But you just gotta have to believe in it.
Thank you for chatting with me today, Michael. But before we go, I like to finish the podcast on a positive note. I like to ask my guests about something in tech that is giving them hope or makes them happy about the future. Sometimes we do need that these days in the world of tech. Anything that you have your eye on?
In the world in general, I think these are some crazy times that we're living through.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I think I'm generally, like, there's a lot of things that I'm optimistic about. I think the availability of tools right now is great for newcomers. I think when I look back at the stuff that we had to deal with to get into the business of making any creative project, today it's so much easier, and knowledge is so much more readily available on so many platforms online. So I'm very hopeful and optimistic about the next generation of creators and the heights that they would reach. given game engines and better design tools and access to knowledge in general. So we had to like find each other through the maelstrom of early internet on these weird forums and weird obscure websites. I think people are more connected today. So I'm pretty hopeful about that. I also want to highlight something that we already talked about. Like I am hopeful about AI. And I know it's a really hot topic, and I know a lot of creative people are really, fearful and angry, and sometimes rightly so, about how this new future of artificial intelligence is handling their property. And I hate how it's happening, but I must also admit that I've been using ChatGPT, for example, as a writing assistant. And I do a lot of writing, and I think I do through the fog see some version of the future where AI can help us and maximize our creative output, where it doesn't take away from the creativity that we have, but it lets us sort of stand on the shoulders of this weird, complex thing. And I'm pretty hopeful about that. Like I think there are also good things in there. It's all about nuance, right? And finding, exactly as we talked about, like repetitive things. There is a lot of creative work that is not very fulfilling. That is part of the creative process, and I would love to delegate that to AI. I think it can be used as a partner in sort of quicker iterating on ideas, getting to where you want to express your creativity. I think it'll speed us up if we use it right. I have this fear, of course, that it will dilute creative work. I think it's up to all of us to make sure that it doesn't, that we use it in a smart way. It's here to stay. Like sometimes the conversation is, do we like it or don't we like it? And I think that's a mute conversation at this point. It's here. It's coming faster than most people know, and it's everywhere. I think we have to look through the hype, because there is a lot of hype right now, and see where the genuine benefits are of AI. And I'm hopeful that we will figure that out somehow. And there are parts of the creative work that it could also do. I'm sure of it. It's just, it can't be the end-to-end thing. There has to be humans involved, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's correct. Well, Michael, this was a big chat. We really got into it.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
Oh no, it's been good. It's been super fun. But thank you so much for taking this time. It was really great. I think the big takeaway we can give is that everyone should go and wishlist Dinolords right now on Steam.
Please do.
Yes. Is there anything else you want to draw people's attention to before we say goodbye?
I'm trying to write more, and I've started doing that more on Substack. So if you want to maybe get a little bit more of a candid sort of behind the scenes of what I'm working on, then go and give that a subscribe. I'll send you some occasional emails with things that I think is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a subscriber. I enjoy your occasional newsletters. They're great.
That's cool.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your time. All the best.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
And that's it for First Last Everything. Thanks again to Michael for joining me. You can find links to everything we discussed, as well as where to find both Michael and me online in the show notes, where you'll also find a link to our feedback form. We are a Mac Stories podcast. Head to macstories.net/podcast to check out some of the other great podcasts on offer. Thanks to the amazing Will Laporte who does our music, and of course thanks to you for listening. I'll see you next time when my guest will be former Simpsons writer and co-creator of Futurama, David X. Cohen. I hope you'll join me.